Imagine this scenario for a second. Your engineering team just spent, I don't know, 6 grueling months building this mathematically flawless beta model.
Right, a massive undertaking.
Exactly. And the insights it generates are just completely game-changing for your business. So you roll this new analytics dashboard out to your clients, and you're expecting standing ovations, renewed contracts, the whole 9 yards.
Oh yeah, you think it's a massive win.
But instead, you just get crickets. Or even worse, they complain that it feels clunky.
Yeah, that happens way more often than people think.
It really does. They just stop using it entirely, and you are left wondering, why does human psychology demand pretty colors and nice fonts before it trusts hard, objective math?
It is a fascinating problem.
It really is. Welcome to episode 32 of our series, Data Designed with Mockup. Today, we are taking a massive leap into the world of customer-facing analytics.
And it is a deep topic, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Specifically, we are looking at how leveraging dashboard wireframing can completely elevate your analytics and help you create unforgettable brand experiences. Today's deep dive is based on a really comprehensive guide called Elevating Customer-Facing Analytics with Mock Dashboard Designs.
It's a great source. Really detailed.
Super detailed. So the mission for you listening today is straightforward. We are going to explore exactly how to transform raw, overwhelming, and frankly sometimes boring data into this stunning, interactive, and personalized asset that your customers will actually enjoy using.
Which is the dream, right? Actually enjoying the data.
Exactly. And the best part, we're going to break down how to do all of this without requiring a massive, dedicated design team.
That is the real game changer right there.
Right, because whether you are a front-end developer tasked with building these tools, or a product marketer mapping out the customer journey, or just a curious learner who wants to understand how information is communicated in the modern business world, mastering data visualization is just a massive shortcut to better communication.
It really is the universal language of business now.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting at the very beginning of the process, the blueprint.
The most important part.
Right, because before anyone can analyze a single line of data or code a live dashboard, there has to be a structural plan. And the source material highlights a specific tool for this called mockup.ai, which is a specialized dashboard wireframing platform.
Yeah, and that blueprint phase is where most data projects actually fail, long before any actual code is written.
Wait, really? Before any code?
Oh, absolutely. Because a wireframe is essentially a low-fidelity visual representation, like a mock-up of what the interactive dashboard is going to look like and how the user will navigate it.
Right, it's just the bones of it.
Exactly. Jumping straight into development without one is just a recipe for scope creep.
Yeah, the way I think about it, trying to build a complex customer-facing dashboard without a wireframe is basically like trying to build a custom house based entirely on a game of charades.
Wow, that is an incredibly accurate way to put it.
Right. You are just waving your arms around in a meeting going, make the revenue chart feel swooshy. Put a module over here that feels insightful. You need a realistic visual depiction first so everyone knows what they are actually building.
Yeah, that charades analogy works so well because it highlights the core issue, which is that human imagination is entirely subjective.
Totally.
The tangible context of a wireframe aligns expectations between the developers building the tool and the stakeholders paying for it. When a client, or say a product manager, can actually see and click through a realistic mock-up, their comprehension of the final product just skyrockets.
Because it's no longer just an idea in their head.
Exactly. They stop dealing in abstract concepts and start dealing in spatial reality. They can point to a specific module and realize, actually having the churn rate right next to the total revenue is too distracting. Let's move that to a different tab.
Which saves the developers from having to, rip out and rewrite back-end code 3 weeks later.
Precisely the point. It minimizes those endless, painful design revisions late in the development cycle. It facilitates highly specific feedback when changes are still cheap and easy to make.
Right, when it's just pixels and not actual database queries.
Exactly. But there is a secondary benefit the guide focuses on regarding mockups specifically. It changes the traditional workflow by utilizing pre-built, domain-specific templates.
Oh, yeah, this stood out to me too. The guide talks about how these templates essentially allow developers to act as designers.
And that is a massive paradigm shift. Because traditionally, the workflow is highly siloed. You have a UI/UX designer draft the visuals in a standard design tool.
Right.
And then they hand it off to a developer to somehow translate that into a functioning dashboard.
Which never goes perfectly.
No, never. The friction there is that UI designers often don't understand the strict technical limitations of the underlying database.
Oh, right.
They might design a beautifully intricate scatter plot that the data architecture simply cannot support in real time.
So they design a house that basically defies the laws of physics.
Exactly that. But by utilizing specialized wireframing templates in mockup, developers can quickly draft up the wireframes themselves.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they are the ones who will be writing the code. They inherently understand what is actually possible to pull from the data warehouse. They establish the layout structures and visual consistency early on, but it is entirely grounded in technical reality.
Okay, so once you have that realistic blueprint, the natural next question is, well, what should actually guide the aesthetic design of that wireframe? What are we trying to achieve visually before we hand it off to be built? And the guide points directly to customization and branding.
It does, very strongly.
Now, I have to push back on this a little bit,
Okay, let's hear it.
because if we are talking about a B2B SaaS platform or, an internal analytics tool, if the underlying data is accurate, if the math is right and it calculates the ROI perfectly, why does the look and feel even matter?
Right, the numbers are the numbers.
Exactly. It's a dashboard, not a novel or a movie. It's just numbers. Shouldn't the numbers just speak for themselves?
What's fascinating here is how deeply human psychology influences our perception of mathematics.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. We love to think we are purely rational creatures when we look at a spreadsheet or a bar chart. We think we are just processing raw information.
Yeah, because we are professionals.
Right, exactly. But cognitive science tells a completely different story. Visual consistency directly dictates user trust.
Wait, so if the colors are ugly, I literally trust the math less.
On a subconscious level, yes,
That is wild.
it is. The brain is an incredibly efficient media, which is to say lazy organ. It relies on heuristics or mental shortcuts to evaluate its environment.
Okay, I follow.
If a customer logs into your software, which has a specific color palette, specific typography, a specific vibe, and then they click over to the analytics dashboard and it looks completely disjointed.
Like it doesn't belong there.
Right, maybe the colors clash, or it uses a generic, out-of-the-box template font. The brain flags that inconsistency as an error.
Oh, like someone showing up to a corporate boardroom in a clown suit. Even if they have a brilliant presentation, your brain is too distracted by the polka dots to actually take them seriously.
That jarring effect completely breaks the user's immersion. Subconsciously, the user questions the reliability of the environment, which bleeds into questioning the reliability of the data itself.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If a company can't be bothered to make the charts look cohesive, why should the user trust that they calculated the complex predictive algorithms correctly?
Okay, that makes a scary amount of sense.
Right. A well-crafted, branded visual experience signals professionalism, and in the human brain, professionalism implies reliability.
The guide actually breaks down the benefits of this personalized visualization into several key areas, and you just hit on the biggest one, trust and credibility.
It's foundational.
But it also dives heavily into the idea of cognitive load, which I found fascinating. It basically argues that branding actually improves the user experience by making the data easier to read.
This connects directly back to the brain's efficiency. When the visual elements of your dashboard, the navigation menus, the button styles, the highlight colors align with what the user already knows about your broader brand, it creates an immediate sense of familiarity.
So they don't have to relearn how to use the software.
Right. Familiarity lowers the cognitive load. The user isn't wasting mental energy figuring out your interface or deciphering what a specific color means because they've already learned your visual language elsewhere in your product.
That is so smart.
Yeah, it means 100% of their brain power can be dedicated to actually understanding the data insights, which is the entire point of the dashboard in the first place.
The source material also touches on how this visual consistency builds an emotional connection and helps with differentiation, which, again, sounds a bit soft for a conversation about data architecture.
It sounds like a marketing pitch.
Right. But in a crowded market, if you have 10 different SaaS tools offering roughly the same raw data, the one that tells a coherent story visually is the one people are actually going to remember. You want the user to feel smart and capable when they use your tool, not overwhelmed.
Data visualization is, at its core, a form of narrative.
Oh, I like that.
By meticulously controlling the visual elements in your wireframe, you are visually conveying your brand's values. If your brand is all about, say, simplicity and minimalism, a cluttered, neon-colored dashboard directly contradicts your identity.
It breaks the promise to the user.
Exactly. You are trying to tell a coherent story with the data rather than just dumping a pile of numbers into the user's lap and wishing them luck.
Okay, so let's track our progress here.
Sure.
We have our structural blueprint built in mockup. We understand the deep psychological necessity to brand and customize this data so our users actually trust it and don't suffer from cognitive overload.
Check and check.
Now, how do we actually build the final product? We have to move from the wireframe to the actual live application. And the text introduces a platform called Visly to execute this.
Right. Visly is a powerful embedded analytics tool. This is the engine that takes that beautifully branded, user-approved wireframe and makes it a functional reality for the end user.
And it does it natively, right?
Yes, and it approaches this process in a way that is highly focused on modern web development practices.
The guide specifically highlights that Visly connects directly to a company's database in a self-hosted environment. I imagine that's a massive selling point for any company dealing with sensitive customer data, right?
Oh, huge.
You aren't shipping your proprietary numbers off to a third-party server just to be rendered into a pie chart.
It is a critical security feature, but where it really shines for the developers who actually have to build this is how it handles the embedding process. It supports embedding as React or Vue components.
Okay, let's pause right there for the marketers and the curious learners in our audience who might not be, deep into front-end coding.
Good idea.
React and Vue are essentially modern frameworks, like digital sets of building blocks that developers use to build interactive user interfaces. By saying Visly embeds as a component, it basically means it snaps perfectly into those existing building blocks.
Exactly. It's native.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The source material explicitly celebrates the fact that Visly does all this with, quote, not an iframe in sight.
Which is a huge relief for developers.
Here, anyone who isn't familiar, an iframe is an older piece of web technology. It is basically the equivalent of punching a square hole in your website and showing a completely different website through that hole.
That's a great visual. And historically, that was how almost all third-party analytics were embedded.
Right.
You would generate a chart on a different service and then use an iframe to display it on your site. The problem is exactly what we discussed regarding user trust.
They always look so out of place. Always. Iframes almost always look clunky.
Right.
They load at different speeds than the rest of the page, they have their own rigid scroll bars, and they rarely match your native branding perfectly.
Because they aren't actually part of your site.
Right. They feel disconnected because, architecturally, they are disconnected. But Visly avoids the iframe trap entirely. Because it uses those React or Vue components we mentioned, the dashboard becomes a native part of your application's actual code. It's not a window looking at another house. It's a room built inside your house.
And that architectural difference unlocks unparalleled customization. The guide explains that developers can pass CSS objects directly to the Visly theme API.
Okay, translating again for the non-devs out there.
Yeah.
A CSS object is essentially a digital style guide written in code.
Yep, perfect translation.
It dictates everything from the exact hex code of your primary brand color to the padding around a button to the specific font weight of a headline. And an API is just the messenger that allows two pieces of software to talk to each other. So by passing that CSS object to the Visly API, you are essentially injecting the exact visual DNA of your brand directly into the core of the dashboard.
That is a fantastic way to visualize it.
You
are coding the dashboard to perfectly mathematically match your overarching UI design system.
Which goes back to building trust.
Exactly. And this API-driven approach goes far beyond just changing background colors. Developers can directly access Visly's API through what are called React hooks to generate specific charts on demand. Or they can even inject their own custom-coded web components directly into the Visly dashboard layout.
Meaning if you have a highly specific proprietary way you want to display a certain metric, something no out-of-the-box chart can do, you can just build it yourself and slot it right into the Visly framework.
You are never boxed into a rigid, unchangeable template.
That's incredible.
Yeah, you are molding the tool to fit your exact data requirements and your exact brand aesthetics. It provides the heavy lifting of the data connections and the rendering engine, while giving the developer total control over the presentation layer.
Okay, so we now have this incredibly powerful workflow. We can build a technically sound wireframe with mockup, ensuring we don't build a house of cards.
Right.
We can build and embed natively with Visly, avoiding the clunky iframes. We have the technical power for infinite customization. We can change every single color, alter every font and inject completely custom code.
It's total freedom.
But just because we can customize absolutely everything doesn't mean we should.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer is a resounding no.
I knew you were going to say that.
That's true. Just because you have a palette of a million colors doesn't mean you should use them all on the same canvas.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal here is user-centric communication, not creating abstract digital art.
Right.
Maintaining a strict balance between customization and usability is the golden rule of customer-facing analytics.
Yeah, if the user can't actually read the trend line on the chart because you decided to make the background dark purple and the data line light purple, just because those are your company's logo colors, you have failed.
Utterly failed.
The cognitive load goes through the roof, and it doesn't matter how quote-unquote on-brand it technically is.
Customization must never compromise usability. The data itself must always remain the hero of the story.
The hero of the story, I like that.
The branding is simply the invisible framework that supports the data and builds that psychological trust we discussed earlier. And the guide lays out several very specific best practices for maintaining this delicate balance.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, you want to highlight brand elements seamlessly without overpowering the information.
So incorporate your primary brand colors for the main navigational elements. Use your company's typography for the headers. Put your logo in a visible but unobtrusive spot. Basically, set the vibe but get out of the data's way.
Exactly. Which leads directly to the second best practice, emphasizing data relevance through visual cues.
Okay, so visual cues.
Right. While your overarching brand colors are important for the framework, you have to use universally understood, user-friendly colors within the actual charts to guide the viewer's attention.
Right, like using green for positive revenue growth and red for a drop.
Yes, universal signals.
If your brand colors are neon pink and yellow, making the revenue loss column bright pink might look cool, but it's going to deeply confuse the user's brain.
It fights against all their instincts.
Yeah.
You have to prioritize intuitive navigation and clear labeling over stylistic flourishes. If someone has to click a tiny custom-designed icon 3 times just to figure out what a specific scatter plot is actually measuring, your design is too complicated.
Simplicity always wins.
Simplicity and clarity have to win out every single time.
The source material also strongly recommends developing custom visualization templates, right?
It does.
Like once you go through this rigorous process and find that perfect golden balance of brand aesthetics and clean data presentation, you need to lock it in.
Absolutely. You don't want to reinvent the wheel every time.
Exactly. Whether you are saving that layout within Visly's tools or building a reusable wireframe template in mockup, having a standard library ensures a consistent look and feel across every single dashboard your company ever builds.
Right.
You don't want the marketing dashboard to look like it was designed by a completely different company than the sales dashboard.
Standardization is how you scale that trust we keep talking about.
Yeah.
But perhaps the most important best practice the guide emphasizes is the realization that a customer-facing dashboard is never truly finished.
Oh, right. The work never ends.
It requires a cycle of constant testing and iteration.
You can't just build it, launch it, and walk away.
No, you have to regularly test these customized visualizations with a sample of your actual target audience.
Because what makes sense to the developer might not make sense to the user.
Exactly. You might stare at a wireframe for a month and think the layout is perfectly intuitive, but the moment you put it in front of a real customer, they might get completely lost just trying to find the date filter.
Yeah, so you have to gather that qualitative feedback and iterate based on their actual behavior, not just your internal assumptions.
Precisely. And once the dashboard is live, the work shifts to continuous monitoring. You have to track the engagement metrics.
Like, are they actually clicking on things?
Right. Are users actually interacting with the drill-down features you built? Are they spending time on the dashboard, or are they logging in, getting frustrated, and bouncing after 10 seconds?
Because what is considered a, modern, intuitive user experience today might look incredibly dated and frustrating in 5 years. Think about how web design has shifted from hyper-realistic 3D buttons to entirely flat design. And now back to subtle gradients.
Visual trends change rapidly.
They really do, and customer expectations evolve. Your analytics have to evolve with them.
It's an ongoing commitment.
So what does this all mean for you listening? We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started with the absolute necessity of the blueprint, understanding how utilizing a wireframing tool like Mockup aligns expectations, prevents scope creep, and empowers developers to establish visual consistency grounded in technical reality.
The foundational step.
Right. Then we explored the deep, fascinating psychological reasons why branding your data isn't just an exercise in corporate vanity. It is a fundamental requirement for building immense customer trust, lowering the user's cognitive load, and telling a coherent, memorable story.
It's all about how the brain works.
Exactly. And finally, we looked at how to execute those designs seamlessly, using Visly's API-driven components, ensuring that your dashboard feels like a native, integrated part of your application rather than a clunky iframe add-on.
It's a complete end-to-end strategy.
It really is. It means you now have the conceptual toolkit. You understand both the technical workflow and the human psychology required to empower your team. You can now provide actionable intelligence to your customers in a way that is trustworthy, professional, and visually stunning.
It is an incredibly powerful methodology.
Yeah.
But, unpacking all of this raises an important question, something we haven't touched on yet, but that feels inevitable given the trajectory of modern technology.
Oh, where are we going with this?
Well, the sources we explored today heavily emphasize that a consistent brand identity, having the exact same colors, the same layouts, the same familiar structure for every user, is what builds that crucial trust and lowers cognitive load.
Right, that's the whole premise.
But looking toward the near future, as AI becomes deeply integrated into analytics platforms, we are rapidly moving toward an era of hyper-personalized dynamic dashboards.
Dynamic as in they change.
Yes, we are talking about dashboards that are generated on the fly, reorganizing their entire layout and chart selection based on an individual user's specific behavior, their role, and their momentary needs.
Oh, wow. So if we both work at the same company using the same SaaS tool, my dashboard would reorganize itself to look completely different than your dashboard just based on how we interact with the data.
Exactly. The layout becomes completely fluid. So the provocative thought to mull over is this: how will companies maintain that critical, consistent visual brand and the psychological trust that comes with it when the dashboard literally looks completely different for every single person who logs in?
Man, that is tough.
How do you successfully brand a shapeshifter?
That is a fascinating problem for the next generation of designers and developers to solve. Because right now, you definitely don't want to be building that custom house based on a game of charades. You want the blueprint, you want the psychological trust, and you want the flawless execution. Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive into data designed with mockup. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we will catch you next time.